Well, welcome everybody to the call tonight. And I'm trying to look and see here how many people we have. And
We shared with Tracy before some of you come on that this is not surprisingly a small group in this call tonight, just because we have a lot of our administrators reached out and said, they're leaving on their a bit of holiday that they get, and a lot of people leaving on 4th of July Independence Day weekend for us here in the States. So anyway, so we have a small, more intimate group tonight.
and I just want to recognize Carrick and Carol Adams tonight. Thank you guys for being on the call. I met Carrick at a training here lately, and they're down. You guys are in Eastern Oregon, right? Down in
Yep, Central Oregon near Madras.
That's great. That's great. Probably got pretty warm out there too, I'm imagining.
Yes.
Well, we're glad to have you guys here tonight with us. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're planning on breakout groups tonight, but we probably are just going to talk as one big group. We have so many of our people that on the call tonight that are here on every call. Thank you guys for being here. And so let's get started. Tonight, I want to talk about one of my favorite things, and as Doris well knows, and that is when the body becomes the mind. When the body becomes the mind. And one of the fascinating things about this is that, typically we think of the cortex as the CEO of our organization, right? Of our body, of the brain, everything that goes on with us. But when we really think about it, our body, our autonomic nervous system, and our nervous system responses really impact everything that we think and feel, and therefore, really, the body ends up becoming the mind. And oftentimes the body, our unconscious, implicit bodily sensations end up driving our behavior and our emotional behavior. And then our emotional behavior often drives our cognitive, our thinking, and the type of thoughts we have, and so on and so forth, the decisions that we make. And so what we have then is our body really running the program. And so when we talk about trauma, that's exactly what happens with trauma. When we're talking about trauma, we're talking about the central nervous system basically being in a state of dysregulation. And when that happens, then we really act out of our unconscious values, beliefs, sensations, and so on. And so what I'm going to talk to you tonight applies both to us as adults, whether you've had trauma in your life or not, and it really influences the way that we would work with children who have impacts from trauma. So let's just talk about this for a couple of minutes. And the first thing I want you guys to do, and this is where we were going to go to a breakout, but I decided not to do that. And that is that imagine that you're driving along in your car on a foggy, icy road, when suddenly somebody comes to a sudden stop in front of you. And you basically start to go out, you hit your brakes, you basically start to go out of control, but you are able to avoid having an accident. And then you fortunately get home or get to work. So what do you do next to feel better after that type of?
And we do have enough for 3 groups of 3 if you want.
We could
to chat with each other.
We could do that if you want.
You want to?
You could do it, yeah, if you want to do it real fast. But think about that then. So you've had this close accident, maybe something similar you've actually experienced in your life, where you've been driving down the highway, you've had to brake very quickly, very dangerous situation, but fortunately you were able to escape without injury. and then you got home or you got to your office and workplace, and what did you do? What did you do to make yourself feel better? So we're going to put you in groups and let you talk about that for about 5 minutes and then come back out and discuss what you guys
Okay.
came up with.
Okay, so do you want to give them a minute to get situated and a minute
Let's
per
just do 5
person to share?
minutes.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll see you guys in 5 minutes. I guess we have to start our video as well, right? In order for you to hear us and see us. And before we go on and share, I just want to make sure that I go back and acknowledge that Diane's here with us today. And this was her monthly challenge from June, which was practicing moving from reactive to creative. And we're so thankful for her to have come on and shared her expertise with us last month. For those of you who were here, know that that was really valuable. And so anyway, thank you, Diane, again. And hopefully some folks benefited from this challenge for the month of June. And so now we want to ask you to go ahead and share what did you do next to feel better? Just a couple of people that want to unmute and share out loud. This is a friendly crew, so.
We talked about Chi strategies, mainly looking at breathing, like taking that time to stop and breathe, and to also talk to someone. So whether you called your husband or told a friend when you got to work, like that debriefing through someone you felt safe with, and that you could explain what the situation was.
No, that's great.
great.
Thanks, Tracy. I bet those came up in other groups as well. What else? Did anybody else want to share?
Well, we shared what we had done in the past, which was not helpful. Just plowing on through to the next, thing that we needed to do. We're venting. And I said that what I would do now would be, a heart math technique, heart focused breathing, and trying to get coherent before I did anything else. But back in the past, we didn't have those tools. I'm glad we have them now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Diane.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, you look like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we talked about kind of debriefing, hugging your loved ones and then talking it out, possibly at some point starting to think about what car repairs you have been putting off. Maybe attend to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing, guys. Those are all great, and just kind of give us a nice contrast. I'm glad you shared, Diane, the contrast between maybe what we used to would have done and what we would do now, and really being attentive to that. So
yeah, I think what you guys shared was really great, because the thing about it is that trauma occurs when we remain in this state of activation. And so the kids you're working with, they're not using the strategies that Diane talked about, I loved it. Like, they're just trying to plow through. They're just trying to plow through life, but they're still in that state of activation. And that activation, as we're going to see, is stored in memories in the body and in the right hemisphere of the brain. So those were great responses by you guys. They fit perfectly with what we're talking about with regard to trauma. And the thing is, some of you have seen this is out of the HeartMath study, but the only thing I really want to talk about tonight with regard to this particular slide is that the autonomic nervous system controls over 90% of our bodily processes. And you can see here that any change in either branch, in the parasympathetic or sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, changes the way that the heart beats on a beat-to-beat basis. And any emotion that we experience then changes activity in the autonomic nervous system. So what we want to think about again is what emotions are we experiencing? And if you're in a state of trauma, if you went through a lot of trauma like the kids that we work with, then typically that trauma then is stored in memory. It's there, it's still in the body, and it's still activated in the body, and it's affecting the autonomic nervous system. Now, we could talk an hour about this particular slide, because really what it's really showing us is the fact that our emotional responses affect our autonomic nervous system, and our autonomic nervous system affects everything about you. Everything, all of your internal organs. It affects the way your heart beats. everything is changed by that, and it ultimately affects how you think and feel, and how you respond to people, places, and things in your environment. And so we have to work on the autonomic nervous system. We have to go inside what I call the operating system. This is the operating system to get to the cortex and be able to make changes in the cortex. And we have to work on this autonomic nervous system to be able to ultimately change kids and adults' responses to the trauma that has occurred in their life. So think about this thought for just a second. But most of the things that we do and oftentimes say and think are automatic. They're things that we do over and over and over again. When you get up in the morning, you don't have to think about what you're going to do. You get up, like if it's your day to go to work, you have a routine. You don't think through that routine. When you jump in your car right now to go to the grocery store or whatever, you're not thinking about, oh, I got to put my foot on the gas. I got to turn the key. Well, where is the key? Oh yeah, I need keys. No, you don't think about that stuff, right? We automatically do that. We automatically do all of these things, and we automatically react to people, places, and things in much the same way. That becomes a patterned way of thinking, feeling, and responding to others. So if you think about individuals, kids with trauma, a lot of the trauma responses are just responses that are internal responses in this autonomic nervous system, in the body, that they're responding to people, places, and things in their environment. And so that's why oftentimes these little stressors where we're asking kids to do very simple things, it becomes very difficult for them because they respond automatically, or in this case, you could think autonomically, to our questions, to these little stressors that create big challenging behaviors. This you guys may have seen, some of you may have seen this in our trainings too, this particular slide. The only thing I want to talk about with regard to this slide tonight is that when there is a trauma impact, when there's a trauma event, the right and left hemispheres basically lose coordination with each other. And you can think of the right brain as the sensory brain and the left brain as the thinking brain. And the trauma, and we know for sure that the trauma goes into the right hemisphere and into the body. We know that. And so what happens is then we know that that trauma memory then is stored in that right brain and in the body. And then there's no words to describe these sensory memories, are there? There are no speech centers in the right hemisphere of the brain. And so we're going to show you a very quick video, but oftentimes memories, sensations, all of these things, I just want you to hear that it's these implicit memories, these unconscious memories that are stored in the body and the brain that are driving the behavior. And then we know that trauma impacts the left hemisphere of the brain, in that's where most of the memory centers, the learning centers that are all located, right? And so that left hemisphere, the thinking brain, is impacted in a very significant way in that learning, processing, focusing, all of our executive functioning skills are impacted by this lack of coordination between the right and the left hemisphere, and where the memories are stored. So we're going to show you this video that I think you guys will like. And let me go back to see if I can share it here with you guys. And let's watch this and see what we.
Oh, sorry, we forgot to optimize the sound so that you're going to get the sound directly. Here you go. And of course, it's going to give us a few seconds of ad first, because that's what YouTube does, right?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. One finger.
We don't remember trauma in our left brain narrative memory areas. We remember trauma with our bodies, that we encode traumatic memory as a bodily and emotional state rather than as a narrative. And why do we do that? We think that we do that because it's safer. Because if you have to think, oh yeah, a mountain lion ate 2 of the kids last week, that takes longer than having your body freeze and start to look around to see what's out there. That's much more protective than having to remember, and where did they see that mountain lion? That's very slow. But the problem is that when we remember fear, when we remember hopelessness, when we remember loneliness as a feeling without an event, we don't experience it as memory. We don't know that we're remembering. And I think that's something to think about in these coming days, because when we feel the real and present fears related to this epidemic situation, those are of course real and they're protective because our fears keep us careful. But some of us are also going to have fear memories stimulated by this situation in which we are in danger potentially anywhere we go. And the same with feeling hopeless as this situation goes on in what feels like an interminable way. We have losses. We lost the in-person Networker Symposium, which is very dear to our hearts, and there's a mourning for that. We've lost contact with friends, with coworkers, sometimes even with family members. So those real experiences, though, are also going to trigger the feeling and body memories of other not similar world situations, but similar feeling situations. So Dan Siegel reminds us that these implicit body and emotional memories do not carry with them the internal sensation that something is being recalled. We act, feel, and imagine without recognition of the influence of past experience on our present reality. And this is also what causes the phenomenon of triggering. It's the body's instinctive physical reaction to all stimuli that are connected either directly or very, very subtly. And it is quite amazing. I always remember a young man who I'll call Ben. I remember Ben coming in October, and he said, well, my seasonal affective disorder has kicked up again. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And he said, yes, this cool, cloudy weather. Now, I'm in Northern California, so cool, cloudy weather, means we don't have sun for the whole day. And I said to him, tell me, what did cool, cloudy weather mean when you were a kid? And he said, well, I grew up in North Dakota, and cool, cloudy weather meant we were stuck in the house with mom because Cool, cloudy weather meant snow, rain, freezing cold temperatures. And then he said, oh, no wonder I'm depressed. Because mom was his abuser. Mom was a very, very frightening individual. So his body responded to the cool, cloudy weather, not with seasonal affective depression, but with body memories of hopelessness.
Okay, so I think that's a fascinating video in so many ways, right? I hope you guys enjoyed it. The thing that I think that is so powerful about that video is that trauma is not experienced as this memory of danger that occurred, or this memory of fear that occurred, or hopelessness that occurred. It's experienced as hopelessness, and it could be the trigger of being in a situation, being with another person, being in a certain room, being in the classroom, and where you can see here where things can trigger the trauma, and the immediate response by the nervous system, then by the body, is I'm in a dangerous situation. So if I'm feeling that at the time, I don't know why I'm feeling it, I'm just feeling it. And so I am in fight, flight, or freeze. And so this is powerful, right? When we think of it this way, and I think that it gives us more compassion toward those adults and those children who all of a sudden are demonstrating this traumatic behavior, and we don't know why. We can't figure out. And when we ask them, they can't tell us. They can't tell us because it's not remembered that way. Is not remembered as an experience. It's just remembered as a feeling. So the thing about it is that then when we talk about how do we pull the mind out of the body, then we need to think about, first of all, gaining an awareness of before you can have this emotional regulation. And how many of the kids that we work with have awareness of their, right? I'm getting a lot of no. Not very many kids at all have the awareness of what is even happening to them. They just experience the emotion and they react on that emotion. So what we're going to need to do then is to help those kids gain a deeper awareness of what is happening when they're having these very strong, powerful sensations in their body. Now, one of the ways that we can do that, that I just want to give you guys real quickly, is that we can do a lot of mind, what I would call mind-body exercises, where we could, for example, access the right hemisphere of the brain, let's say by drawing or coloring, and then have the child then tell us what they drew or they colored, tell us about that. Now that right hemisphere of the brain is the sensory part of the brain, right? So that's any drawing, coloring, that sort of thing would be a sensory experience. And then we ask them to tell us about what they've drawn. That would be, now we're accessing the thinking part of the brain, right? We could ask them, when you feel a certain sensation in your body, draw where that's at, or show me where that's at. When you feel angry, where do you feel that in your body? Now tell me, where do you feel calm in your body? And what we're going through is this process called pendulation. Peter Levine calls this pendulation, and where we're working with the right and left hemispheres, and we're building coordination between those two hemispheres. So that's one of the ways that we can help them realize what they are experiencing. And one of the other ways then that we can do is through this HeartMath technique that we want to just talk about for just for a minute here. And now most of you have not been exposed to hard math, but what we know is that any emotions that we experience affect our heart, and our heart actually has enough neurons and its own memory system, hormonal system, and so on to be considered a heart brain. And the heart's part of that autonomic nervous system, and the heart then receives signals. When we experience any emotion, the heart receives those signals, and if they are renewing emotions such as care, compassion, love, appreciation, then the heart sends a pattern, sort of a Morse code, if you will, to the brain that synchronizes the activity in the brain. But when we are experiencing stress and anxiety, when we are experiencing emotions of fear, anxiety, worry, terror, hopelessness, depression, those type of feelings, then the pattern that the heart sends to the brain doesn't allow the brain, that part of the brain called the thalamus that synchronizes the brain, to be able to synchronize the brain, and the child is in a state of dysregulation. And when they're in this state of dysregulation, then they're in that trauma state, right? They're experiencing all of this anxiety, fear, and so on, and they don't know why. So what do we do here? So how can we help kids? First of all, help them recognize what emotions are you experiencing. And then let's teach them how to experience renewing emotions, such as compassion, care, love, empathy, those sorts of things. And when we do that, what we're really doing is we're going into that operating system, and we're really working on that autonomic nervous system that is working on the brain. And we know the HeartMath Institute shows that we can significantly impact their emotional state and their ability to be more coherent in their thinking. And one of the things here is that when we experience traumatic feelings, when we experience fight, flight, or freeze over and over and over again, or any depleting emotion, what happens here is that the amygdala, then these messages have to pass to the amygdala before getting to the thalamus. And the amygdala then begins to look for similar things in our environment that match up with these emotions that we're experiencing. And I see Diane shaking her head and smiling at me there. That's what, because she knows exactly what I'm talking about here. And the thing is that once we begin to experience an emotion over and over and over again, it becomes sort of our set point, so that we begin to experience that emotion even more often. So think of the kids that you're working with right now that have so much trauma in their life. And think of your own self as well. I know many of you on the call tonight, I mean, some of us have been through trauma, right? And some of that is from way back in childhood, and some of that might have happened recently. But the thing about it is, the more that trauma is activated, then the more depleting emotions that we have, and it's like that's our thermostat, right? And so our thermostat begins to be one that's set on anxiety, worry, fear. And the more we experience it, the more the amygdala reacts to that, and basically the neural pathways that we're developing, that are already developed for those, are strengthened every time that we have those thoughts and those fears over and over again. Now, the thing about this is that we can change the baseline, and the way that we change it then is by changing the way we feel. Changing the way we feel. We make a decision that, and we are not going to be able to go into it in length tonight, but the thing about it is, can we find appreciation in our life? Can we help children become aware of their emotional state and help them change that emotional state to one that's more positive? And the answer to that is yes. And there's a lot of research that shows that we can do this. And for us adults that are on the call tonight, we can do this for ourselves as well. Through some simple techniques and strategies, and even some deep breathing. Some of you have been on our heart math, where we talked about heart math. Diana talked about heart math last month, and just our heart focused breathing, just some deep breaths, focusing on the area of the heart, can help repattern that autonomic nervous system, slow down that autonomic nervous system, and create more calm and ease in the body. And the more that you can create more calm and ease in the body, the more calm and ease you create in the mind. And so these are some of the things I'm just encouraging you to, if you're interested in and you don't know about heart math, heart math has a great site that you can go on. We're going to be continuing to talk about heart math, I'm sure, throughout the next year. But the thing about it is that we know that we have to reestablish a new baseline, because when we don't do that, we're living out of our familiar past. Now, if you go, oh, Rick, I'm always living in the present. Right? Very few of us are, right? Most of us were either in the familiar past, our thinking and emotions are in the familiar past, or we're in the unpredictable future. Aren't we? How often are we in the present moment, where we're just in the present, being able to enjoy life, being able to focus on what we appreciate, those who love us, those who we love, and so on. And, when I'm in that present moment, even talking about it makes me feel good. I'm not thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. I'm not thinking about what happened in the last 5 minutes. I'm just in that present moment. And how can we work together as adults to be able to do that, and also to be able to help our children to be able to do that as well? Any questions or comments before I go on to just a couple more things? Hopefully this is making sense. Think about, here's the thing, guys. It's our lack of awareness oftentimes that is is our biggest roadblock. We're not aware of what we're thinking, what we're feeling. Are we in the past? Are we in the future? Are we in the present? How am I reacting to this situation? We lack awareness. We don't lack awareness here's why we lack awareness, because we've repatterned. We're on automatic pilot. That's why we lack awareness. So I say something, somebody says something to me and I snap at them, or I get really upset. And I find out they weren't really criticizing me. They were just giving me some feedback, right? Once I'm aware that what's really happening. But in the moment, oftentimes, I'm just reacting automatically to people, to situations, to places, and we do this. So researchers now show that most of our thoughts, maybe 80% of our thoughts, are negative thoughts. We have a negativity bias. Look this up. We have a negativity bias. Even when things are going well, we're thinking about, oh yeah, they're going well right now, but when's this gonna stop? Don't we do this? And then think about the kids with trauma that you're working with, or that you've worked with this last year. They're thinking this all the time. Imagine all the negative thought patterns and all of the depleting emotions that they're experiencing. And then we find that they have a lot of difficulty enjoying anything that we do. And how about us as adults? We get into those same patterns, those same cycles. Yeah, you know, it's good right now, but when's it going to turn bad? And that's a term that Brene Brown used as foreboding joy. How many of us deal with foreboding joy? Like, yeah, it's really good, but when's it gonna, like, you can't enjoy that present moment of happiness and joy and love and family and all of those things, connection, because you're thinking already about, oh yeah, when's that gonna end? And oftentimes that does have to do with past memories where things didn't end well, where things were going well, but they didn't end well. And oftentimes, of course, what we're experiencing there are those past emotional memories. But see, when we become aware of those things, that's a game changer for us. So let me show you something real quick here. I'm going to give you an acronym that I happen to like. We like this in Oregon. RAIN, right? Rain, lots of rain. So here's something that you can do when you're in a situation in which you're experiencing intense emotions that cause you confusion or stress, right? You don't have to be in a trauma state. You don't have to have gone through significant trauma. But think about what we talked about, what I've talked about today. And here's the first thing you can do. You can consciously recognize the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are affecting you. Just like the automobile. If you're in an automobile situation in our example at first, where you went into breakout groups, when you got home or your office, you started thinking about, okay, wow, what happened? So here, think about what we're saying is that name your emotions. Be aware, be intent on being aware of the emotions that you're experiencing in a situation. Because often we're on an automatic pilot, aren't we? And then allow these thoughts, emotions, or sensations to be there without self-judgment. That's a big one, right? We're oftentimes judging ourselves in a negative, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that way. I shouldn't have had that thought. No, we're going to show you those thoughts and emotions are simply just that. They're thoughts and emotions. Or trying to numb them. Oh, I shouldn't feel angry and upset right now. No, in other words, this next one. Investigate with kindness and self-compassion to get a complete picture of what's going on. Direct your attention to your present experience. So ask yourself these questions, and these are good questions for kids as well. What's going on in my body? These would be great for kids, right? That you're working with. Or if you're a therapist and you're working with somebody in therapy, whatever your role is, but what's going on in my body? What's going on in your body? What are you experiencing right now? What is calling for attention? What is your body wanting? What are you wanting at that time? And oftentimes, I said, what is calling for your attention for a lot of these kids is that I should be afraid right now. I should run. I should get out of it. I should get away from this. But being aware of that, being aware of yes, I'm experiencing fear, but there's nothing to be afraid of is going to be a big step for these kids, right? And then what am I believing? And here I think of private logic. What's your private logic? Private logic is how do you see yourself? How do you see others? And how do you see the world? So what am I thinking about let's think of as adults right now. How do I see the world? Do I feel like I'll be rejected? Do I feel like I may be abandoned? Do I feel loved? Do I feel cared for? What do I think about the world? What do I think about others with me and so on? And most of all too, what are my feelings about myself? And then what does this feeling want from me? What purpose is this feeling serving for me? If I'm experiencing joy and happiness, continue doing it, right? when I'm experiencing depression and sadness, well, how can I allow this feeling then to give me information about, you're not going to push that away. You're going to say, what does this feeling, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Maybe this feeling can be informative for me. This anxiety can be informative for me right now. It can give me information about what I need to do or what I can do. But the main thing I want you to see here is, do not identify with your limiting emotions, thoughts, sensations, or stories. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your thoughts are not your own. They're not part of you. They don't define you. And they don't define these children that we're working with. This is a big one right here. If you study neuroscience and you just think about what we're talking about today, we have situations in our lives, people in our lives, places in our lives that trigger emotions. Those emotions then trigger thoughts. There's nothing faster than I used to say there's nothing faster than a thought. Now I say there's nothing faster than a thought except an emotion. Because these emotions actually hijack your thoughts. You can get in front of the mirror and go, you know what? I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. And then all of a sudden step outside the door and go, I'm afraid. Like, you can feel that feeling, right? And here's the thing about it is they don't limit who you are. They don't limit the wonderful things that you have to offer the world, all of your other gifts and your abilities. And what we're saying is to take awareness of them and then let them pass. They don't limit you in any way. What I'm talking about here is the habit of, you're going to break the habit of being yourself. You're going to break the habit of, because many of the things are just habits. And if you can have an intent and awareness of what it is that is making you afraid, making you anxious, making you depressed, creating reactions to certain people and places and things that you don't want to react in that way, then you'll be working on that operating system of the autonomic nervous system and the mind-body connection to be able to create the best person that you really want to be. And so what we want to do then next is to put you into a breakout group, last breakout group. And so I think we have it here on the slide. How would we leverage our understanding of trauma to be more effective in working children with trauma impacts? So based on what we talked about tonight, how would we leverage this understanding for us as adults to be more effective in working with kids that have experienced trauma? And maybe with other adults as well. So you can use this question any way you'd like to use it. So what we'll do is we'll give you 5 minutes. We'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll debrief it real quick before we finish up.
Okay. We've got great people in our group, don't we? Don't you always love the breakouts? So good to share and connect with one another. So are there a couple people who'd like to share? How do you feel like we could leverage this understanding to help us be more effective? What do you think? Were there some common things that came up in your group or something that really stood out to you?
For me or for our group, we kind of talked about the fact that there's a time when you want to use this. It's not during when they flip their lid or they're dysregulated. That this RAIN strategy is something that you could use in your debrief after they are re-regulated And then how do you process what happened or what was feeling or what happened? That this would be a way to process that.
Absolutely,
That's
Lisa.
great.
And the more you do it when they're in their calm, the more that they'll be able to use that strategy as they start to feel, right, the feeling in their body or whatever. So, but you're right, it has to be done, practiced when they're calm to get good at it, or to become able to recognize it. Somebody else, something that stood out to you or that you shared in common with others.
I have a bit of a question. I was in a group with Lisa, and I'm a teacher, and so I get a lot of time I get the flip out, but I don't always get to debrief as much because I have 20 other students. And so I was almost wondering if those are things like if you can kind of sense that a child is like starting to be triggered, is that something that you could use pre-flip out to try to avoid the big emotional
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We talk a lot about having a proactive regulation plan for these kids. So as soon as they get to school, they have a place to go where maybe they get to talk to an adult about what the expectations are for the day. Maybe they do some heart math strategies together. There's several different things that they can do that are regulating strategies, but you're absolutely right. You want to, and they need this on a regular, they need this on a daily schedule because they're experiencing those emotions on a day, every day. And so the more that we can build regulation for them, the more that you're going to be able to do with them academically in the classroom.
Anybody else that has something you want to share from your group? And if not, looks like we're getting really close to wrap up time, 2 minutes.
Well, my group, we also realize we need to use this strategy on ourselves because we can be very compassionate and present to other people, but teachers, counselors tend to be very other directed, and sometimes we beat ourselves up and need to allow these emotions to be there without judging. A. Need to give ourselves an A.
Yeah. No, I love that, Diane. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that I was hoping for just our meeting tonight was that if nothing else, it makes us, I'm hoping it makes us more compassionate toward those children that are living out of their trauma right now, and also more compassionate for each other, because we don't know what, everybody has gone through something or is going through something, and typically we don't know what that is. But if we did know, wouldn't we treat them in a more compassionate, caring way? And I think we would. And I'm just thinking about Carrick and Carol. I met Carrick at one of our trainings, and so Carrick's a teacher, Carol. They've taken on 3 foster kids, and I think guys might have had a couple before that as well, with that, have trauma. And just wanted to let you guys know that they, I didn't know I was going to talk about this tonight when I talked to you after the training, but anyway, but I hope that it was helpful.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And
Rick and Doris, you're muted.
Oh, how funny when I hit a button and must have muted us as well. Sorry about that. Thank you. So I just dropped into the chat. I had meant to give you this PowerPoint handout at the beginning tonight. I apologize that I didn't do that. But if you want to pull that download out of the chat by just clicking on it, then you'll have the RAIN process to deal with, so that you can use that to deal with emotions to prevent them from being stored in your body and impacting your baseline. So any questions about that? That's our challenge for July.